With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Now, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Questions Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert here in the Cats and Dogs studios, and we've already hit farting. Not by one of us, probably by Sweet Daphne. You know where they allow farting? The Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Just go on in there and say, hey, you got any wine recommendations? Rip! And they'll go, oh, you came in here and farted. That's funny. The Fridge Wholesale Liquor, the finest liquor store in town, even if it smells like crap. Was that a bad commercial? Was that a good
No comment. I can't believe they pay us.
They've already paid us
for that.
Yeah. But get into the fridge. It really doesn't smell. It smells like good decisions and victory.
What's victory?
You wouldn't know what it smells like.
Yeah. Right?
Because
been a few weeks.
You're a loser. Hey, speaking of losers, K-State really stunk on Friday night. So we'll get into all that. And, of course, that's what we do on this podcast. We answer the questions from Wabash Station, the subscribers at GoPowerCat.com, and we get into all of these topics that you want addressed. Let's start undressing. just not going well with
this
Ryan
is the worst
Gilbert.
intro.
Okay.
With Ryan Gilbert.
From KSU Gene, who needs a kick in the seat of their pants? Players or coaches? Or should they be sent to their bedroom without supper?
Well, they got a kick in the pants, apparently, on Saturday from their head coach, who also agrees he needs a kick in the pants. The coaches got it. Players got it. Someone told me today they've never seen that from Chris Klieman anywhere close. And this is someone that would know.
The first half of the press conference, I thought it was going to be done in 10 minutes today. And then I think towards the end he lightened up a little bit, but you could tell he wasn't happy.
Well,
start.
He wasn't happy, and it's not like he was unhappy with the media.
Sure.
I mean, in fact, he said, someone was trying to cushion the question, goes, go ahead and ask. We deserve this. So I appreciate that about him. Will Howard came in. He was a direct, although he went Skylar Thompson and had very long answers, kind of ran out the clock a little bit. But, we just won't know. We won't know how they respond until Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's probably both. And like you said, Fitz, it happened. Chris Klieman was, as mad as he's ever been. And I think that the players know. I think the coaches know that the expectations are higher than what the performance was on Friday in Stillwater.
Everybody needs it. And Klieman mentioned that, how on Saturday when they kind of came together and reflected on this game, there was no finger pointing at anybody. Everybody acknowledged that everybody needs to be better. And so to answer the question, it's everybody, players, coaches, and not just one unit, not just one part of the game, offense, defense. It's everybody. Everybody's got to be better. Everybody's got to be on the same page, and continuity, all that stuff's got to be better.
I agree. I didn't recognize that as a Kansas State football team. One of the hallmarks of Kansas State has always been you play your heart out. You give everything. Because, the institution's the little guy that overcomes the odds, and that has played out in sports teams, sports performances in the past. And it was the opposite of that. It was a team that honestly looked like, hey, we're Big 12 champs. We're going to do it again. It's just, we just got to show up. And that's not how it works.
I feel like Friday's game was the average of the last 5 games in Stillwater that K-State's played. They won one. Sure, K-State showed some flashes on Friday night, but it always feels like K-State's on the back foot in Stillwater, trying to come from behind, put something together, running a game plan that just doesn't add up to the rest of the season, what they've shown. Just some strange plays being called. It truly felt like deja vu going there. We've seen this game so many times in Stillwater.
I agree.
I had wandered off to talk with Gillum. Did either of you hear Howard say anything about the fumbled snap on 4th down against Oklahoma State? Okay.
Just Hayden.
I assume that Howard would take blame for it, and Hayden took blame for it as well. And that's kind of where this team is right now. Everybody acknowledges that, hey, I've got to be better. And for that specific play, I'm sure it's not both of their fault, right? There was miscommunication. Somebody was in the wrong, but I'm sure both players would take the blame.
I don't actually know. I don't want to say that Will wouldn't, but I think Hayden is totally in the wrong there.
Yeah. But I'm sure Will would say, hey, I've got to be better at telling him to play or something along those lines.
I just figured it was a first word snap. It's like, hey, hold up. Oh, snap the ball. Heard a call. I don't know.
Yep.
From Call Me T22, Mizzou delay of game, going for it on 4th down and snapping it over Will's head, repeatedly having procedure penalties in the red zone, veterans not finishing plays. Does K-State have a coaching problem? Not in terms of someone needing to be fired, but in terms of players being out-hustled and out-focused.
Well, that sounds like coaches don't make players hustle and focus. The players make themselves hustle and focus. Now, there's enough blame to go around, but those things are not the blame of the coaches. If you can't compete with passion and focus, get the hell out of the way. I mean, if that's too much to ask, you don't belong at Kansas State. You probably don't belong in college sports. If you're good enough, you can play at Texas, where they often don't have focus and passion, but they're good enough to win. I got news for you. You're not good enough to win here to do that. No, you're just not. So I don't know. The coaches have to be accountable for it. I think some coaches have fallen way short. We've seen some parts of this team that look poorly coached. But you go back to this game, and it was repeatedly veteran players, leaders, who were jogging through passing routes, who weren't executing, who were throwing interceptions, who were snapping the ball at the wrong count or whatever, whoever's fault that was. Chris Klieman brought it up. That snap was between a fourth-year senior quarterback and a sixth-year senior center. The interception that was a pick six before halftime was a pass from that same senior quarterback to a sixth-year receiver. And they're on this wrong page. They're not communicating. That's players, man. That's players not getting themselves ready. They wouldn't call the play if the players didn't know how to run it. They just didn't run it right.
Can lead a horse to water. Can't make a drink.
No, in this case, the horse peed in the water.
Like you.
Yeah, I'll pee anywhere.
I think Friday was a lot of player performance. I think, yes, you can point at some coaching, but you look at the mistake. I mean, K-State was in the game up until 3 minutes left. Believe it or not, it never felt like it, but K-State certainly had a chance to win the game at the end if they executed correctly. But I think that's what it comes down to. It was execution on the field. Yeah, there were some play calls that were strange, some schemes, some ideas that didn't really work out. But at the end of the day, I think it was on the players.
Yeah, the plays they called didn't work. So was that a bad play call or bad execution? maybe they even executed technically correct, but without the kind of effort that you need, to make a play work. It was just an ugly day. I can't wait to answer more questions about it.
The whole quarterback controversy is silly in my opinion, but we wouldn't have it if Will Howard just played a decent game. People would be focusing on those 5 or 6 dudes that you mentioned, Fitz, that didn't play well, the veterans, the leaders that need to be more focused. And for whatever reason, people don't want to look at those just because of Will Howard playing poorly. And I'm not defending his play. He was bad. But it's not just Howard. The entire team, like I said earlier, everybody has to be on the same page. Nobody can be getting out-hustled and out-focused like the question asked, because they did. And coaching can only coach, right? It's on the players to step up and play, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
I mean, if you can change one play from that game, you take away the pick 6, and if Oklahoma State doesn't score there, that game's in overtime. It's a 22-22 game. Sure, there's some math and some things you got to change about the 2-point conversions and whatnot, but for the most part, it's a 2-point, or it's a tie game going to overtime. K-State was not out of that game as bad as it looked on TV, in person, wherever you're watching it. It was a bad K-State performance. But on the other side, K-State's defense held them to 5 field goals instead of giving up touchdowns. They give up 1 offensive touchdown. I think there's some positives that you can look at. As frustrating of a loss as it was, definitely frustrating. Will Howard did not play the best game, but you can change one play, and K-State's right there tied up.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, give the defense credit for holding Oklahoma State 2 field goals, but ideally,
right,
you don't get them into the red zone. But still, credit where it's due. Bend, don't break.
Correct.
I Like Pickles Cat wants to know, going back from Chris Kleiman's hiring to today, what has gone wrong in regards to current receiver play?
I just don't think they've recruited well enough at that position.
Too reliant on the portal.
Well, even that, I don't think they've done a good job.
They're not good there.
No matter whether it's portal, junior college,
and the portal guys,
freshman, maybe that there's some talent in those lower classes, but if there is, you would think we'd see them based on what we're seeing on the field. But it's not good enough. And as much as I like R.J. Garcia and was hopeful after the first game that he was going to be a big factor, he's just not available. He's not open. They're just not good enough, and that falls on the coaches. They haven't, they've had a revolving door at that position. I feel like Matthew Middleton's the right guy that has inherited a really thin group, and they tried to put pig on that lipstick. Jesus, lipstick on that pig. Why does my brain do that?
Oh, that's amazing.
My brain's just, but it still was not an attractive product.
This is Chris Kleiman's 5th season, right?
Yeah.
And Phillip Brooks is the number 1 wide receiver, would you say?
By default, yes.
Yes. And it's his 6th season, so that would mean that he played a season under Bill Snyder.
Yep.
Do you understand how bad it is in season 5 to have a guy that played for a coach that isn't here anymore?
Yep.
And he's the number 1 guy by default, by attrition.
Yep.
It's insane that Phillip Brooks,
it's not good,
is out there having to compete against guy. I'm taller than Phillip Brooks, okay? Sorry to say it, but at 6 foot, I'm taller than Phillip Brooks. Someone shorter than me should not be trying to catch a pass against a 6'3", 6'4" defensive back at Oklahoma State. There's a reason that some balls to Phillip Brooks are going to get picked off. He's just not the type of guy that you want as your athlete going up for 50-50 balls. I mean, that's if the ball makes it to him to be a 50-50, let's be honest. I mean, it's not like Phillip Brooks had a chance at that ball in the first place, but if maybe he's, a Malik Knowles type, at least maybe he can compete for it a little bit. But no, the wide receivers, it's bad. And, I think that was my biggest concern going into the season, and nothing has changed. I think Jaden Jackson has been the biggest star. I'm surprised. I don't know, someone that's stepped up. But even then, the last couple of games, it's just kind of, you might have got the first touchdown, but where else have you been? It just, and then Keegan Johnson, it feels like he only plays in the second half, or only catches balls in the second half. It's like, what are you doing early on in the game? Like, does it just take longer for him to work up, to warm up? Like, I've seen him sit on the bike in the first half or whatever. I don't get it with Keegan Johnson.
Let me ask you guys this. In the preseason, the off-season, fall camp, was I completely wrong in reading what they were saying, that Keegan Johnson was electric, made a bunch of tough catches, was a real competitor, was going to be the go-to guy? Did I dream that up, or was that actually said?
It was said.
There's a real disconnect for me here. It's either this guy doesn't want to compete in games, or maybe it's the injuries. If it's the injuries, don't play him. Play a young guy. I'm beginning to think it's, I don't know. I'm not going to say it. I just don't. If you're being trusted to play, go play. If you're not ready to play, don't play. If you don't want to play and you're scared to be hurt, scared to fail, scared of something, get the hell off the field and go get that accounting degree. I don't know what else to say. Go play, man. Go play.
What about Xavier Lloyd? They've talked about him in spring football for 2 seasons. What? I don't get it.
I'm so confused.
If we gave Chris Klieman some truth serum before the season, did he think that Keegan Johnson was going to save his wide receiver room? Deep down, what did he think?
Well, first, I don't think he'd agree that it needed to be saved. But I do think that everyone on that staff thought he was going to be the guy. Yeah. He was going to replace it. At the very least, he was going to replace what Malik Knowles gave. And from talking to him, it sounded like they expected more than what Malik did. They've gotten so far less, it's astonishing.
And Malik, with all respect, didn't have the bar set too high.
No.
Yeah.
And somehow you've come in and replaced Malik, who was always injured, and you're injured more. You really have truly replaced the young man. I'm just so confused by the whole receiver situation.
Last question of the first half from Aces Wild 1032. Last year, K-State had Malik Knowles and Cade Warner, who could both be deep ball winners. Is the offense's biggest issue that we don't have anyone who can stretch the field outside of Ben Sinnott?
Yeah, but Cade didn't stretch the field with great speed. He was just a smart receiver. He made the most of his cuts and his ability to get open and reading defenses. I don't think some of these guys have the same level of savvy, game knowledge, understanding, and Cade Warner did. At the end of the day, that's who they miss the most. He doesn't have a receiver that he can count on to be open. And Cade was open. Cade would get open, and they were on the same page. I thought that would be RJ, and it hasn't been. And hopefully that they can get that going, because I think RJ can fill that role if he can understand exactly what the defense is trying to do and what he needs to do in return.
I would have liked to have seen Ben Sinnott used in more creative ways, especially coming out of a bye week at Oklahoma State. Put him in the backfield, get something going for him downhill. Let him use his feet before he even gets to the line of scrimmage. I mean, he is your best playmaker in terms of pass catchers. I mean, yeah, the wide receivers are bad. Why not use your best one? And I get it. He's getting double teamed, and he is really the only best option, and that's why he hasn't had a monster season like we all thought he would, because he's, opponents know who the best player is in terms of the pass catchers, and so you've got to get creative if you're calling Klein and Chris Klieman.
But if you're getting double teamed, that means somebody's got to be open.
Yeah, and last year, Cade Warner would be your perfect guy.
I don't know who that open guy can be if you're going to, expect Ben Sinnott to be covered all the time.
Sure.
But, yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, if you're RJ Garcia, your only option is if you're one-on-one, just run a deep route and go, right? Like, you're not going to get open 5 yards across the line of scrimmage, right? Phillip Brooks, you've mentioned your frustrations with him. Zach, Jaden Jackson, where's he been? So there's just not a lot of options.
To be clear, Phillip Brooks, my frustrations with that is not against him. It's about the situation that he's placed in. The situation, yes. Phillip Brooks, it's great that he stuck around. It's great what he's done for the program. But at the same time, the fact that the program has to rely on him so much is not fair to Phillip Brooks or the program.
Yep, I agree. We're with all that.
I can't believe he has 27 catches on the year.
Phillip Brooks?
That's a lot. Seems like a lot less.
It's Phillip or Ben?
Phillip. Ben only has 20.
Yeah. You got to get Vincent involved more.
Yeah.
You have to make him, at this point, you have to treat him like the number one wide receiver.
And also, with that said, how many touchdowns does Phillip Brooks have?
Phillip Brooks has 2.
Right. They got to get the ball to him in positions where he's got momentum, he's on the move, and he can catch and run. It seems like he runs a lot of patterns where I'm here, throw me the ball, now I'll run. I mean, crossing patterns, deep patterns, I'm not going to try to scheme for them, but do something different. Let's put it that way. That's it for the first half of the PowerCat Questions podcast. On the other side of this very brief break, in fact, we're only going to wear our briefs during the break. We'll have more of your questions from Wabash Station.
GoPowerCat.com's PowerCat podcast continues after this short break.
Getting the crew together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door. Which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome back to the PowerCat podcast.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions podcast as we bridge the gap from a dreadful performance at Oklahoma State leading into Saturday night's game at Texas Tech, and I'm with two of the guys from the media who will be there. And that's not Dude the dog.
It's Daphne.
It's Daphne. Daphne will be there. Tim Fitzgerald will not be there. Zach Carlson and Ryan Gilbert will get in a car and drive. It doesn't help when a bunch of the media was talking about their flights today. It really put a lot of pressure on me as the boss. It's not cheap to fly.
This is a company bonding opportunity.
Do you two?
For me and Zach. Be in the car.
Yeah.
Listen to Hits 1 for 9 hours. Talk about some Formula One racing.
What's funny about that is I listen to so much more Highway now than I do Hits 1.
I'm so proud of you.
Now, granted, the Highway is Hits 1 if it's country.
Yeah, it's not my flavor.
We're gonna hear Walker Hayes once an hour. I'm sorry that Gills has to listen to that. But
folks, I'm sorry you have to listen to this, but I got to tell Zach the story in the podcast microphones happen to be recording. So we all talk about algorithms, right? It's how important it is for YouTube that, and it does. It starts to pick up on what you watch or listen to and then give you more of that. First of all, I love the X algorithm because, hey, you just watched that video of that pass interference call. Here's another video just like it. In fact, it's the exact same video from someone else. And here's another video like it. It's also the exact. Can we fix your algorithm? I don't want to see this video over and over. But I went to my Amazon Music account, and in my music suggested for you, there was
greatest hits of all time.
Cody Johnson, Ryan Bingham, Turnpike Troubadours, and Walker Hayes.
Sounds like greatest hits to me, baby.
Like, what? I was like, Zach's been into my music. I know it's Zach's fault. Yeah.
Get a little Kane Brown in there, and you've got.
So we don't need the XM radio. We can just use Fitz's playlist. It's the exact same, right?
No, I pay a lot of money for that XM. We're getting every dollar out of it.
Fitz pays Zach so much money, you can buy XM radio.
Yes, he's got tax problems.
I need to call them and tell them I need to cancel because I probably pay the most for Sirius XM out of anybody in the country.
Yeah, got the bad deal. This is the Power Cat Questions podcast. We're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Cats will be back in town next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, next weekend. And guess what? It's another night game. That means you got plenty of time to go to the Fridge and got plenty of time to tailgate and get all tuned up for the Cats and Frogs 2 weekends from this week. Is that right? You know what I mean. What's the date, Zach?
The 21st?
October 21st. We'll go with that. When struggling TCU struggles into town to play maybe struggling K-State, but maybe they'll correct all their problems. And if they listen to this podcast, they probably will. Here's more of your questions from Wabash Station.
From Go Stay Kate, were fan expectations too high this year, or is K-State underachieving?
I would say right now it's hard to tell, but I would say it's possible both are true. And I was with that. I thought they would be 10-2 in the regular season. And what's amazing about it is
it's still mathematically possible.
Still mathematically possible, but I predicted that not realizing how bad the conference would be. Who would have thought they would lose at Oklahoma State after seeing what Oklahoma State was this year? Some people expected them to be pretty good. I didn't, but I didn't think they'd be as bad as they were. And K-State still lost. So, yeah, I think you can have both true. We had maybe our sights set a little bit too high for the team, but also they're underachieving. If they lose in Lubbock, I think they're definitely underachieving. And not because they lost in Lubbock or lost in Stillwater, but they lost to both of them back to back.
Yeah, I think expectations were high, considering where I put them. I'm pretty much a perpetual 8-4 guy. Expect K-State to go 8-4. If they're worse, hope you make a bowl game at 6-6, and it's a fine season.
Safe number.
And then if you go 10-2, maybe you're playing in the conference championship game, or even 9-3 like last year.
Your season of 8-4 is the equivalent to my 5 keys to victory prediction of 31-27.
Yeah, I'm a big Bo Pelini guy. What can I say?
Okay.
When you have 4 players get drafted, the expectations were too high. That doesn't mean that K-State is underachieved, but I think the answer to this is way more towards the expectations than anything else.
Yeah.
But the problem is K-State's played very bad. The situation, however, is not bad at all for Kansas State. Yeah, you've lost a game and it was ugly, but you still control your own destiny for that Big 12 title that they've talked about all year long, all offseason long. Do I think they're going to get there? No, especially if they continue to play the way that they've been playing. But it doesn't matter how you get your wins and how you get your loses. The only thing that matters, losses.
Yeah. Yes.
Fitz, I blame you. This is rubbed off on me now. There's still 7 more games to go in the regular season. Mm-hmm. So anything can happen.
I agree.
See, when I think about, remember preseason and, early season, everyone's talking, the defense has great depth. Well, now you're seeing injuries, especially at corner. You're just like, well, never mind. It's just, there's a lot of guys that, you can talk about how much depth you have and how much you like it, but a lot of this depth is unproven, unplayed, talented players, but there's going to be some growing pains. Yeah. And I think that, Wally pointed out on the boards, he had a long reply earlier today.
It was a rant.
It was a post. It was fine. 2023, before the seniors decided to return on the offensive line, it was going to be a transition year. And now you're kind of seeing that, hey, there's definitely a lot of young guys that are going to have to learn and, learn to play and get some experience under their belt. And, as fun as it was to dream of a second Big 12 championship game in a row, a potential second championship in 2 years, I think that was really a really lofty goal. But I think it's you can look at the team right now, especially after that loss at Oklahoma State, and especially after the way they lost at Mizzou, this team should be 5-0. I mean, K-State's certainly underachieving at this point. Mm-hmm. You should expect them to be 5-0. They shouldn't be a 3-2 team.
No.
And I don't think they are a 3-2 team. I think you could say they're a 4-1 team. You know, I think that's probably a fair assessment of where they should be. So, I think that K-State's underachieving, but you got to remember, I think that the goals were extremely high and the expectations were extremely high just based on last year. And now I think that things are finally settling into reality a little bit and recognizing, hey, this isn't necessarily about this season or even this game. There's going to be a building process going forward to 2024 and beyond.
At the end of the day, you are what your record says you are. And K-State should be unbeaten, but it's 3-2 going on the road. They need to win this. There's no doubt in my mind. They really need to win this. If they go to Lubbock and play poorly again and lose, it's going to get really heated. People are going to be really asking some questions, and those questions will deserve answers.
Have you guys heard of the plexiglass principle?
No.
It's when a team that improves in one season tends to decline in the next season. And
why is that the plexiglass principle?
I can look up the definition if you so please, but I'll probably spare your time.
Yes, please do.
Is it because plexiglass is it's flexible?
Sure, we'll go with that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Easy to break? I don't know.
It's not. It's plexiglass.
The offensive line, though, that Wally brought up and you mentioned, right, that's a great point, right?
Got to be better.
But that drastically changed the expectations, too, of the season.
Yeah, it changed the expectations, but also at a certain point, and I think I did include some questions in here about this, but at a certain point, if your veterans are not performing at the expected level to get you wins, to get you to a championship game, at what point do you say, you know, I don't want to say tank for 2024, but you've got to get some of these young guys that are absolutely going to be starters next year in 2024. You've got to get them some experience. And I think they are rotating a little bit more than, you know, what you might think. But I think that at some point you got to say, you know, especially if K-State loses a game or two here in the next, you know, before the end of October, I think you want to make a bowl game for sure. But, you know, what bowl game do you really want to play in? Do you want to play, you know, Independence Bowl, or do you want to play Pop-Tarts Bowl? You know, what's your goal?
I like Pop-Tarts.
I'd love to go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl. You know, and I think that's at this point, I think it's a realistic landing spot if K-State can pick it up here and get a win in Lubbock and, you know, hopefully win out in October. But if you don't win out in October, you know, what is the goal for the season and what does it mean for 2024? Because, you know, I don't want to look ahead too far, but just based on what the offensive line, you know, is this year in the relative depth among other positions, guys need some playing time. Mm-hmm. And if you're not going to be competing for a Big 12 championship game, and if the veterans are not worth, you know, the reps versus playing an inexperienced guy, playing a young guy to get some experience under his belt, you know, I think there's a certain discussion that needs to be had in November probably to figure out what the goal is for the rest of the season going forward.
It's not just the offensive line, though. It's
that's
team.
That's the whole team, but it's
like Phillip Brooks. As much as we've bashed him today, what value does he bring to your team for 2024? And so if you lose this game, okay, well, sorry, but okay, let's get Lloyd a look. You know, Garcia some more targets, right? It's valid.
Yeah. No, it's easy to pick on the offensive line, but it extends beyond that. It extends to the guys that are on 5th and 6th years that are taking the spot of future reps for 2024.
I agree.
I agree with agreeing. Agreeing. Go ahead.
From Jim Jam Trash Slam.
Wow.
It's not noted in here that this is a new
No, this has been around. He's been around.
I've never heard of this one.
I like it, though.
Huh.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyways.
It sounds close to like a Jamar Samuels trash can thing, but it's not.
Okay.
I don't know.
Close. In your opinion, which of these three groups have underachieved the most?
Yes.
O-line, wide receiver, or D-line?
Oh, I think D-line's been okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put.
I think it's fine.
I think O-line's in the middle. I think wide receiver is the biggest underachieving. They just haven't been a factor in hardly any game. Maybe SEMO. That was it. That might tell you what level they're playing at.
Relative to expectations, though, I think we all agreed.
Relative to expectations, offensive line is the biggest underachiever. And preseason, we said wide receivers, low expectations. Prove to us what you are. And wide receivers have not done that, but the offensive line has been a significant letdown to what the expectations were. So, wide receivers definitely, I would say, are probably the underachieving the most, but compared to expectations, offensive line for sure.
Yeah. And we'll give them a little bit of a pass with the Duffy injury.
Right. They've struggled through some injury. But beyond that,
the depth, though, has been Carver Willis was not too good when he stepped in, right? Having a snap go behind Will Howard's head on a fourth down play probably wasn't on our bingo cards for this coming season from the O-line. So they've been a lot worse than the preseason expectation.
Well, they've been totally unsettled. Guys moving around, then it looked like everyone was going to be in place for Oklahoma State. They just didn't play well. We come down to the end of the game, and they've got two guys that we expected not to see the field that much, now that the starting five are in place, on the field. So that tells you all you need to know about how people were performing in this game. They underperformed.
From Domer Cat.
Domer.
Welcome. First post on this podcast. So welcome.
He probably signed up under the last special, too, for
just ask us questions.
Okay. But
I'm assuming.
Is this like a Notre Dame reference, Domer?
I feel like it might be like dome, like the head. I don't know.
A ball being thrown at somebody and hitting off their helmet.
Maybe.
That's a Domer?
K-State player's helmet.
Okay.
I don't know.
Move on.
Why isn't the defense forcing turnovers? It seemed like last year there were often several turnovers per game. Is it a lack of defensive talent or just players out of place schematically?
I think it's some luck, too.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think they've been as aggressive on defense either. They don't have the guys. They've had so many problems on the back end of the defense. They haven't been as aggressive. They're trying not to give up the big play.
Especially against Oklahoma State, they played off a lot.
I know. We've been talking about not giving up explosive plays. That was the opposite of it. Get bled out by a bad offense on the first possession of the game.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, and it was very painful. You got to be aggressive or lucky to cause turnovers. They had no pressure on Alan Bowman. I mean, that guy could have played quarterback and done some beautiful watercolor painting in the pocket. He could have just gotten a couple pieces of art done because he was untouched. Nobody was there to spill his paint. And he was still mediocre as a quarterback. Maybe he's a better artist. I don't know. But, I mean, you've got to pressure guys into making mistakes, and I don't feel like this defense pressures enough.
I don't know.
Hang on. Speaking of Alan Bowman, standing in front of the student section in Oklahoma State, I think that Oklahoma State fans probably do not like Alan Bowman more than K-State fans were giving crap to Will Howard this week. They don't like Alan Bowman.
Yeah, he's not very good.
Do not like him.
He's not.
I wouldn't like any of Oklahoma State's quarterback if I was a Cowboy fan.
No, it's awful. But they still allowed him to win. Yeah, I just don't think they're – well, they blitzed a lot earlier in the season and got caught in a couple of them. But that's what happens when you blitz. I don't think backing off the blitz is the answer. Maybe, just pick different times. But they've got to go back to being aggressive. They can't be scared of giving up the big play and just let yourself bleed out. That's just no way. That's not enjoyable football. That's not winning football. And it sends a message, we're not aggressive. Got to be aggressive.
Sure. With what they did against Oklahoma State, that didn't work. K-State lost the football game, right? But if you're going to go back to the basics and be aggressive, you just got to hope and pray that those explosive plays don't happen because they're on tape this year. K-State's given up game after game after game, explosive plays. And so I agree, Fitz. Yeah, you want to switch things up. But if you go back to what you've been doing earlier in the year, it's insane to expect change. It's insane for those to expect those plays to just go away.
I agree.
So I don't know how to answer this question, to be honest.
I agree.
There's no right answer.
Get more lucky. Be in a better position between
Get
you
your
and the
hands
ball.
up on the defensive line. Pray
Yeah.
for a tipped ball. See what happens.
I think that the defense does a good job of, trying to punch balls out occasionally, but also at what cost versus getting the tackle too.
Yep. You're giving up an extra yard or two here and there when you try to punch it out. That adds up.
You see it. They're trying to cause fumbles, but also, try tackling them a yard or two earlier too. So
I hate to make excuses for the defense, but the injuries have added up on that side of the ball. So that's not helping matters.
Yeah. Agreed.
If you're Joe Klanderman, though, what do you do?
You call up me and say, hey, you want to play a little free safety? And like, free? Dude, I am expensive. I don't know. Was that it?
One more. Some NIL.
Yes, I need NIL. Probably like
Lazy Boy?
Lazy Boy or ibuprofen. Just not a fancy ibuprofen, not an Advil, just like over-the-counter basic crap. Yeah.
Easy Go or Club Car.
I'm sponsored by Walgreens brand ibuprofen.
But that's the worst. Yeah, you need get you a golf cart to go sit out there.
Oh, yeah, I need a golf cart with some racing stripes. Let's do it.
May I?
Yeah.
From Big Sam, last question of the podcast. If some of the upperclassmen are taking their jobs for granted and thinking they can phone it in, isn't it time to let some younger kids into the game and have a shot?
If it happens again this week, yeah. But you can't overreact to one loss. I mean, you just can't. I just said it on my walk and talk. There's so many overreactions. Yeah, they played crappy. Will Howard threw 3 interceptions. Yeah, it wasn't good. But you don't burn down the house to get rid of the cockroaches. You just try to solve that problem. And everyone wants to burn down the house.
I agree with this question. Yes, you need to play some young kids. The younger guys, if the veterans, the guys that aren't going to be around next year, if they're not, playing as well or playing as seriously. But I think the first goal needs to be get bowl eligible. You need to get bowl eligible so you can have that extra practice for sure. You want to make sure you're bowl eligible enough to where you're not going to the Independence Bowl a couple weeks after the Big 12 championship game.
Shreveport in December is gorgeous.
Is it?
I don't know.
But it's only 2 weeks of extra practice. Well, not even that. Not even 2 weeks. You want to get some extra practice in and make sure you're at a bowl game that's further down the calendar at the last week of December. But if you go 3-7, that gives you 2 games after, that are completely worthless. So you might as well just play freshmen and, get reps in. But
that's not happening. I mean, folks, I don't know what's going to happen at Tech, but if this team can't beat TCU and Houston and Manhattan, then there are big problems. I mean, at the very least, you got TCU, Houston, and Baylor and Iowa State still sitting on your schedule in Manhattan. You should be able to win those 4 games easily in Manhattan. And that gets you to 7. Yeah, you then get 3 challenging road games. The toughest games are on the road, being Tech and Texas and Kansas. They'll be fine. Let's calm the overreactions. I will join you on the bridge to take the big leap if they play crappy in Lubbock and lose. Not just lose. If they play crappy and lose and don't look inspired, I'll set the date for us all to jump. I'm also scared of heights, so it'll be a really small bridge. It won't be
4-foot ledge.
Yeah. I'll still injure myself. Let's be clear. That's it for the Power Cat podcast. I hope I remember to take out the dog incident at the end of the video.
And me repeating
video.
Yeah. Oh my God. End of the radio. Well, we're leaving. Thanks for listening. Thanks to the fridge. I'm done.
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.
PGA Tour is back, and so is the First Cut Podcast, part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. Join myself, Rick Gehman, and Greg Ducharme each Monday for a DFS preview before Kyle Porter, Mark Immelman, and Patrick McDonald preview everything in the world of golf on Tuesday. Circle back throughout the week for immediate round-by-round reactions for every tournament every week. The PGA Tour schedule is heating up with Pebble Beach, the WM Phoenix Open, and the Genesis all right around the corner, so it's time to lock in to the First Cut Podcast. Make sure to download and follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found.
CBS Sunday, February 11th, after Super Bowl 58.
You collect rewards, right?
This is how I make my living. It's the debut. Everyone's looking for something. Of a new hero.
You strong swimmer? So-so. So-so's okay.
Justin Hartley stars.
How you survive, you make quick, smart decisions, and you never let panic take the wheel. Sounds cool. It is cool, actually. Very cool.
Tracker, part of CBS Premiere Week, Sunday, February 11th, after Super Bowl 58 on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.